We're back with Dr. Sheri Keffer, the author of this great new book, Intimate Deception, Healing the Wounds of Sexual Betrayal. And you just shared your story, Sheri, of sexual betrayal from your husband. Talk about PTSD. And I was shocked when I was reading that this can cause symptoms like PTSD. Explain this.
Yeah. So out of my research, again, with 100 women, I gave them something called a PCL5, which shows clinical symptoms of PTSD. 79% of them, that's 3 out of every 4 women that experienced betrayal had post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So that's big, because I think we don't think about betrayal as having the magnitude of pain that it would cause, that someone might, when they come back from serving in the Iraq War, or, you know, having gone through 9/11, or having had a car accident. Those are things that we think about traditionally as trauma.
Right.
But betrayal actually causes the same type of trauma in us.
And did you see that in your relationship? Did you see symptoms of PTSD?
Oh, totally.
Explain that. What does that look like?
So I became hypervigilant, really revved up, more irritable, scared. I became very unsure of myself. I had a lot of shame that I had to deal with. When I think about who I was before discovering Connor's betrayal, I was a different person. Yes, I had pain from my past, but I felt good about who I was primarily. But trauma and betrayal especially jacks us up. It causes us to believe things about ourselves that aren't true. And one of them is that it's my fault, that something I did caused this to happen. But truth be told, you know, in marriages, there's normal struggles. And then there's sometimes struggles that are really tough that you've got to work through. But there's no struggle that is bad enough that makes it okay for somebody to betray.
Absolutely. You talk about negative self-talk.
Yeah.
And how, again, exactly what you're saying about just this constant dialogue that you're having in your mind where you're wondering, where did I go wrong? Did I do something wrong?
Yeah, and that's really common for sexual betrayal.
Yeah. So you have something in here called the 180 turnaround. And we can't go through all the steps, but highlight some of those 5 steps that you think we can, that can be used to help in a turnaround. So
what the 180-degree turnaround is a tool, a quick tool to help you look at what it is, the negative belief that I'm believing. So I always ask people to think about this. Say it, write it down like you hear it in your head. What's the belief about yourself that you have in light of what happened to you? So we hear it like, I'm not good enough, or I can't trust anyone. Write it down. Then what I say is, I want you to turn it around. I want you to flip it to the opposite. What would you like to believe about yourself? So the opposite of I'm not good enough would be I am good enough. The opposite of I can't trust anyone is I can choose whom to trust. So write it down, and that's your goal. Whatever it takes, I talk about the wit, whatever it takes you need to do to get to that truth is where it is the work you want to do, right? You don't want to stop until you get there. And then I also, part of that is asking, what is a negative belief in me that might serve a purpose? Like it's kind of disguised. Like let's just say I believe I don't trust anyone. What's the benefit to that? And a lot of people say there's no benefit. And I say, well, think about it. If I believe I can't trust anyone, and maybe I'm not good enough, I'm going to be really isolated. I'm not going to give my heart again. I'm not going to trust. And that takes us right down a dark rabbit hole and leads to depression. So getting our mind healed from where we came from through the shame is really an important piece to getting your life back, getting wholeness back.
And part of that trust is trusting God maybe again.
It is,
and maybe blaming God for the decisions your spouse made, maybe blaming God for the way that you feel. How did you heal that relationship? Was there issues? Were you questioning God?
Totally. So I talk about something in my book called The Dirty Dozen, which are the layers of trauma. And one of them is a spiritual or faith trauma. So if you can imagine, being married to a pastor and life was good, but when all this happened, I definitely said, where are you, God?
So is there hope?
Ton of hope.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a billboard of hope.
Yeah.
I think because I have been through a lot of pain in my marriage to Connor. There was pornography, affairs, prostitutes, the whole gamut. Mm-hmm. And I got to be honest, I walked 17 years jacked up. So when I say that, I felt like I healed broken, like a limb that had been broken. My bone wasn't set straight. And so out of this pain of my life and the work that I had to do to get whole again is what's in there. It's really a roadmap because my heart wants people to heal. And if betrayal happens in a marriage, if that woman or man is laying flat on the ground because of the pain, because of the trauma, they can't fight for that marriage. They can't fight for their families. They can't even stand up. And so my goal is to help them heal well so that they do have the energy to press into the battle and so that they can heal straight. They can heal and know who they are. And really, I think even heal better. So many of the stories in my book, as well as my own story, shows resiliency.
Thank you so much, Sheri.
Yeah.
The name of the book is Intimate Deception, Healing the Wounds of Sexual Betrayal. And maybe you are watching this show and you can totally agree with what Sheri's talking about. Maybe you're right now in a destructive relationship. Maybe you have been betrayed by your spouse. Would you consider calling our prayer lines? Our prayer partners would love to pray with you, to give you hope, to remind you that Jesus loves you, that he sees the situation that you're in, and he wants you to be fine. He wants to love you. He wants to remind you that you are lovable, that you are created by God, and he loves you so intimately. The number's at the bottom of our screen, 1-866-273-4444. Maybe you're somebody watching, and you've been the person who betrayed your spouse. Maybe you made that mistake. Let me remind you that you are not your mistake, that there is hope, there is redemption, as long as you're willing to accept it, as long as you're willing to admit that you did wrong. God is always there, always redeeming, always wanting to forgive, as long as you are willing to accept that forgiveness. Stay with us. We'll be right back.